Chosen one, I need you to mentally go back to the moment you woke up this morning. That split second where you stared at the ceiling, feeling a pressure in your chest so heavy you could not find the words to pray. You just let out a deep, exhausted sigh. You felt like that sigh hit the ceiling and disappeared into the void, did you not? Like God was silent, like you were alone in the room. But I am here to tell you that silence was not God ignoring you. That was the silence of a courtroom when the judge raises his hand to speak. The frequency of that sigh, which scripture calls stenagmos, bypassed every barrier and made God stop everything he was doing. He did not stop to judge you for your weakness. He stopped to issue a verdict against your enemy. You are not watching this video by accident. You have been led here to receive the verdict that was written while you were crying. So lock your focus in right now. Do not let anything distract you for the next few minutes. Because by the end of this video, you will not only understand what happened in the spirit realm this morning, but I am going to give you the specific protocol to handle what heaven just released. There is a shift happening in your timeline over the next 72 hours, and if you are not positioned correctly, you might miss the very thing you have been crying out for. This is your briefing. Stay with me until the very last second. Now, let us decode that silence you felt. You interpreted the silence as distance. You thought, I am crying out, and nothing is moving. The atmosphere feels thick. God must be far away. But you need to understand the protocol of the throne room. In the book of Revelation, chapter 8, verses 3 and 4, we see a fascinating pattern. It describes an angel standing at the altar with a golden censer, offering incense with the prayers of all the saints. And then, verse 1 says that when the seal was opened, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Think about that. Heaven is a place of constant noise. Angels crying, holy, holy, holy. Multitudes worshipping, thunders and lightnings. But when the prayers of the saints on the altar reached a critical mass, everything stopped. The singing stopped. The movement stopped. Why? Because the king was listening. That heaviness you felt in your room this morning was not the absence of God. It was the weight of his undivided attention. You were not speaking into a void. You were speaking into the sudden silence of heaven. Your pain this morning commanded the attention of the Creator. But here is the mystery. You did not use eloquent words. You did not quote 10 scriptures. You just groaned. You just sighed. Why was that so powerful? Why did that stop God when your polished prayers did not? This brings us to the science of the groan. In Romans 8:26, the Apostle Paul reveals a spiritual technology that most believers overlook. He says the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. The Greek word Paul uses there is stenagmos. It literally means a sigh, a groan, or an inarticulate sound brought on by deep pressure. When you try to pray with your logical mind, you are using human language, and human language is limited. It is filtered through your doubts, your fears, and your logic. But when you are so exhausted that you cannot speak, and you just let your spirit cry out, you switch to a different frequency. Stenagmos is a frequency that the enemy cannot decode. Satan can understand English. He can understand your logic. But he cannot understand the raw cry of a spirit touching God. It is encrypted communication. This morning, when you felt that lump in your throat, when you felt like you were choking on your own tears, you were bypassing the second heaven. You were bypassing the realm of spiritual warfare and sending a direct signal to the throne. That helpless feeling was not weakness. It was your highest form of power. You surrendered your logic and allowed your spirit to take over. And that signal is what triggered the silence. But here is the problem, chosen one. And this is why you feel like you are on a spiritual roller coaster. You cannot stay in that state of deep, desperate surrender all day long. Eventually, you had to get out of bed. You had to look at your phone. You had to deal with your kids, your job, the bills, the noise. And the moment you stood up, you felt the connection fade, did you not? The peace lifted, the anxiety returned, the static came back. Why does this happen? Why is it that we can touch God so deeply in our pain, but we lose Him in our daily routine? This is not just spiritual, it is biological. When you are in that deep state of prayer or desperate surrender, your brain is operating in a specific wave frequency. It is open. It is receptive. Jesus gave us a clue about this in Matthew 18:3 when He said, "Unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Children naturally operate in a brain state called theta. It is a state of imagination, deep connection, and trust. They do not overthink, they just receive. That is why they can see the kingdom so easily. This morning, in your exhaustion, you accidentally dropped into that childlike state. You stopped trying to control everything, and you just trusted. But then, the world rushed in. You looked at a notification on your phone. You thought about a deadline. Your brain shifted gears instantly into beta waves. Beta is the frequency of stress. It is the frequency of survival, logic, and problem solving. It is the frequency of, "I have to fix this myself." And you cannot hear the subtle voice of God clearly when your mind is screaming in beta static. So, here is the dilemma we all face. We know how to touch God when we are breaking down, but we do not know how to touch Him when we are walking around. You cannot afford to have a mental breakdown every morning just to hear God's voice. You cannot live your life in a crisis just to keep the channel open. Imagine if you had a radio that only played clear music when you smashed it against the wall. That is how many chosen ones live. They wait for the crash to get the connection. But what if I told you there is a way to tune the radio without breaking it? What if there was a way to access that secret place frequency, that stenagmos connection, without needing the trauma to trigger it? What if you could shift your mind back into that childlike state of reception in minutes, not by crashing, but by aligning? I want to show you exactly how to do this, because once you learn how to stabilize this frequency, you stop visiting God in your pain, and you start walking with Him in your power. This is the key to the next 72 hours of your life. You see, chosen one, science has confirmed what ancient mystics have known for centuries. NASA research has revealed that 98% of children operate at a genius level of creativity and connection. This is that theta state I mentioned, the state where you hear God clearly. But as adults, that number drops to 2%. We do not lose the capacity, we just lose the frequency. The noise of the world, the stress of survival, and the trauma of our battles switch our brains into a rigid state that blocks the signal. So the question is, how do you get back to that 98% without spending 20 years in a monastery or waiting for a crisis to break you open? You use a digital tuning fork. I want to introduce you to a sound technology that acts as a bridge. It is called the Genius Wave. Think of it not as something you learn, but as something you tune into. It uses advanced brainwave entrainment to gently guide your mind back into that theta state, the very frequency you were in this morning when you touched the throne. It only takes 7 minutes a day. You do not need to meditate for hours. You just listen. And as you listen, it clears the static noise of anxiety and fear, allowing your brain to reconnect with its God-given intuition. This is the tool I use to reset my neural pathways when the warfare gets loud. It is how I keep the channel open without needing a breakdown to trigger it. If you feel led to investigate this sound technology and see the science behind it, I have placed the information for you in the pinned comment. It is there for those who are ready to reclaim their frequency. But listen closely, because what I am about to tell you next is critical. Once you reclaim this frequency, and once you realize that God has indeed stopped to issue a verdict in your favor, a new danger arises. And this danger does not come from the enemy. It comes from inside you. It is the shadow of success. There is a part of you right now that is terrified of the breakthrough. I know that sounds irrational. You have been praying for this. You have been fasting for this. But deep down, there is a thought whispering, what if I get it and I lose it? What if I am not ready? This morning, when you felt that pressure, part of it was the fear of the answer. We need to reframe this immediately. That fear is not a lack of faith. It is your spirit sensing the weight of what is coming. In Joel chapter 2, verse 25, God promises to restore the years the locust has eaten. The Hebrew word for restore there is shalom. Shalom does not just mean to give back what was taken. It means to make complete, and often to pay back with interest. When God stops for a chosen one, He initiates shalom. He is not just giving you back the time you lost. He is giving you the acceleration you would have had if you never lost it. That is a massive amount of spiritual weight. That heavy feeling in your chest this morning wasn't just sadness, it was the weight of glory pressing against your current capacity. You are scared because you respect the weight, and that respect is exactly why you are qualified to carry it. Now, we must prepare for the counterattack. Because the moment God stops to issue a verdict for you, the enemy starts to panic. He knows he has lost legal ground, so he will try to win through psychological warfare. Over the next 72 hours, as this shift begins, you will face 3 specific forms of distraction. First, the distraction of pettiness. Small, irrelevant things will break. People will irritate you. The enemy wants you to lower your frequency to argue with flesh and blood. Second, the attack of doubt. You will hear a voice saying, nothing changed. You just imagined it. God didn't hear you. And third, the false option. An opportunity will appear that looks like the answer, but it is actually an Ishmael, a counterfeit sent to make you settle for less than Isaac. So here is your protocol for the next 3 days. I call it the 3-day silence rule. It is based on the prophet Elijah in 1 Kings 19. When Elijah needed to hear God, he didn't find him in the wind, or the earthquake, or the fire. He found him in the still, small voice. For the next 3 days, you are to practice strategic silence. Do not tell anyone about your prayer this morning. Do not post about your breakthrough. Do not share your dreams with anyone who has not earned the right to hear them. Silence is your shield. If you speak too soon, you give the enemy coordinates to attack your seed before it has roots. Keep your mouth closed and your spirit open. Let the frequency build. I want to tell you about a man named David to prove this works. Not King David, but a chosen one, just like you, who I worked with recently. He was in his car, screaming at the windshield, hitting the steering wheel, completely broken. He felt like his prayers were hitting a ceiling of iron. He was about to lose his business and his home. He applied this exact protocol. He used the sound technology to reset his mind to theta every morning instead of scrolling through bad news. And he went completely silent for 40 days. No complaining to friends. No begging people for help. He just held the frequency. On day 40, he received a phone call from a contact he hadn't spoken to in 3 years. That one call didn't just save his business, it launched him into a completely new tax bracket. The breakthrough was waiting for his frequency to match his destiny. This works, chosen one. It is not magic, it is alignment. And now, we are going to seal this alignment. We are going to lock in the verdict that heaven issued this morning. I need you to do something right now. You do not need to move your body, but I want you to make a movement in your spirit. I want you to visualize yourself standing up in the spirit realm. Picture your inner man rising up from the ashes, standing tall, shoulders back, head high, standing before the throne of grace. You are not begging anymore. You are receiving. Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, we stand before you now. We acknowledge the silence. We acknowledge the pause. We thank you that this morning you stopped everything to listen to the groaning of your child. I decree and declare that the verdict has been rendered. The enemy has been overruled. The delay has been broken. I seal the frequency of stenagmos in their spirit. I bind every spirit of distraction, every frequency jammer, and every lie of the enemy that tries to steal this revelation in the next 72 hours. I declare shalom over their life. Not just restoration, but repayment with interest. I speak to their neural pathways, align with the mind of Christ. I speak to their circumstances, align with the will of heaven. Chosen one, God is asking you a question right now. Will you carry the weight of this blessing? Will you stay faithful in the silence until the manifestation comes? If your answer is yes, I want you to scream yes in your spirit right now. Let that yes ring out in the heavenly realms. It is done. It is sealed. It is recorded. The shift has begun. Do not look back. Do not lower your frequency. Walk in the verdict that has been written for you. Do not say amen yet. Sit in this silence for 60 seconds. Let the weight of this glory settle on you. You are dismissed into your destiny.